It's March 2026. Missiles are flying over Isfahan. The ghost strike is underway. And then suddenly the missiles stop. What deterred them? To understand why, you have to understand one number: 60%. Iran enriches its uranium to 60%. That's a very specific number. And because of it, Iran has never built a nuclear weapon, yet has effectively used one every single day for 20 years. Just not in the way that you're thinking. Iran understood that they don't need a weapon to be feared. The enrichment level simply needs to keep the world guessing. And for 20 years, the world has been responding accordingly. Here's what 60% means. Uranium comes out of the ground at less than 1% pure. To be useful, it has to be enriched. Think of it as refining. The concentration of the reactive isotope, U-235, is increased artificially. This happens through centrifuges spinning at enormous speeds. Enrichment levels also tell their own story. 1 to 5%, that's civilian grade. It powers nuclear electricity plants, it's legal, it's monitored, it's common. 20%, that's research reactor territory, but it's still permissible under international agreements. At 60%, no civilian application exists on this level. The IAEA considers this to be highly enriched uranium, and no power plant on Earth needs uranium enriched up to 60%. To understand why this number matters, we need to look at the Global Rulebook, written in 1968.
And as the moment is reassuring, so it is even more hopeful and heartening. For this treaty is evidence that amid the tensions and the strife and the struggle and the sorrow of these years, men of many nations have not lost the way or have not lost the will toward peace. The conclusion of this treaty encourages the hope that other steps may be taken toward a peaceful world. And it is for these reasons and in this perspective that I have described this treaty as the most important international agreement since the beginning of the nuclear age.
The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, also known as the NPT. The NPT was signed by 191 countries, with 3 goals outlined. Number 1, countries without nuclear weapons promised not to develop them. Established nuclear powers, on the other hand, agreed to eventually reduce their arsenals. And all signatories were granted the right to develop peaceful nuclear technology. But here's the problem. The technology is dual use. The centrifuge that enriches the uranium for reactor fuel can keep spinning, pushing the material towards much higher concentration. There is no separate machine for peaceful versus military use. It's the same process, just taken a little bit further. So by enriching up to 60%, Iran technically stays below the weapons threshold, while demonstrating that it has the ability to go much further if it chooses. In June 2025, Iran has stockpiled roughly 441 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. Experts calculate converting this to weapons grade would take weeks, not years. Iran's argument is this: Israel, India, and Pakistan never actually signed the NPT. Israel is widely understood to have nuclear capability, but has never allowed international inspections. Iran, on the other hand, as an NPT signatory, is facing strict monitoring and sanctions.
Early this morning, the International Atomic Energy Agency was informed of the military operation launched by Israel, which includes attacks on nuclear facilities in the Islamic Republic of Iran. We are currently in contact with the Iranian nuclear safety authorities to ascertain the status of relevant nuclear facilities and to assess any wider impacts on nuclear safety and security.
So you have one country outside the treaty with undeclared arsenal, and another country inside the treaty pushing the boundaries of what peaceful actually means. Iran is sitting at 60%, not by accident, it's by perfect design. Experts have confirmed that Iran could reach 90% within weeks of trying. That gap, 30 percentage points, it's not a technical limitation, it's a deliberate address. 60% is not a waiting room. It's a loaded gun left on the table during every negotiation. So why not just go to 90? The reasoning is not engineering, it's a game theory. The move from 60 to 90% is not a technical escalation, it's a declaration of intent. And declarations of intent erase ambiguity. At 90%, every actor that has been watching and waiting loses their justification for restraint. The United States, Israel, Saudi Arabia, the diplomatic architecture holding this as a cold confrontation, it suddenly collapses. The strikes begin. So Iran sees this and they choose to stay at 60%. The 60% threshold is the most sophisticated diplomatic instrument in the Middle East, by my opinion. But let's ask the harder question. What if they crossed to 90%? What if they built the weapon? Could they actually use it? This is where geography becomes brutal. Iran has publicly threatened Israel with nuclear force. But wind patterns don't care about political borders. You see, a nuclear strike on Tel Aviv would release a radioactive plume across the entire region. Jerusalem sits 60 kilometers from Tel Aviv. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, will be within the fallout radius. Below the surface, Jordan's primary water supply draws from aquifers that don't stop at the Israeli borders. Gaza's water table is hydrologically connected to Israel's coastal aquifer. You cannot surgically irradiate one nation in that geography. A nuclear strike on Israel is simultaneously a strike on Palestine, on Jordan, on the broader Arab world that Iran claims to be defending. The weapon designed to protect the Muslim world would poison it. This is what strategists call the suicide mirror. The reflection of the strike comes back as disfigured. Iran's military establishment understands this. They've always understood this, in fact, which forces the most important question in this entire conversation. If the bomb can't be used on Israel, who is it actually for? You see, American carrier groups operate freely in international waters. They project power, they enforce sanctions, they signal intent. Except when a nuclear threshold state controls the coastline. When Iran can plausibly reach weapons grade within weeks, the risk of conventional military action becomes politically unacceptable. The carrier groups don't leave, but they slow down, they recalculate, they hesitate. And hesitation is leverage. Leverage that is guaranteed by 60% enrichment. Not more, not less. If you watch my show on the Strait of Hormuz, you already know that 20% of the world's oil passes through a corridor that Iran can close. What that video didn't tell you is why Iran can threaten to close it without an immediate, overwhelming military response. This is why. The nuclear program and the Hormuz threat are not separate strategies. They are the same strategy operating on two levels simultaneously. Hormuz is the conventional lever, and enrichment is the reason nobody pulls it out of Iran's hand. You cannot fully understand one without the other. The hidden system connects them both. Here's the complete picture. Without the nuclear program, Iran is a sanctioned economy with regional ambition and no seat at the table. But with it, Iran is a global priority. Every G7 meeting, every UN Security Council session, every back-channel negotiation. The program buys Iran a seat at a table it was never supposed to sit at. And while the world watches the centrifuges, Iran's actual expansion continues. Quietly, conventionally, through proxy networks across Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. The nuclear program is sort of a smokescreen. The territorial influence is the strategy. The bomb is a poker chip that never gets played, because its value is highest when it stays on the table. Iran has been pushing that chip forward and pulling it back for 20 years, and the G7 keeps negotiating. So, Iran has never built a nuclear weapon, but has used one every single day for the last 20 years. The weapon is the program. The target is not really Israel. The strategy has always been the same. Stay at 60%, keep the carrier groups cautious, expand quietly while the world watches centrifuges, and it works. So now, The next time you hear about Iran's nuclear program in the news, you'll have an idea of what they're talking about. This is the Axiom Effect. I'm JR. See you on the next one. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.